Hello, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. Tonight, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Blake Duckworth. Uh, by the way, my name's Rick Weaver. Throw that in there. We're proud to have a guest from Colorado, Mr. Zeus Platt of Western Slope Bigfoot, on the show tonight.
How's it
Blake,
going, guys?
go ahead and open things up, Blakester.
I hope everyone's doing good this week. Finally starting to get a little bit back on schedule with our shows. Um, and as always, guys, we can't thank you guys enough for your support. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. Um, and as always, we got, well, not as always, but we've had Zeus on the show quite a few times. Basically, we're just having him on the show tonight to it's been about 6 months since we've had him on the show. So just kind of see what kind of evidence he's been gathering.
Right, and if everyone would, please go to Western Slope Bigfoot, subscribe and like Zeus's content. Zeus really strives very hard out there in the mountains of Colorado to bring us evidence. He's sent a lot of new photos in tonight, which we'll be showing periodically during the show. Mr. Zeus, floor is yours, buddy.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's good to be back on. Uh, since winter is finally breaking, I mean, it's still very cold, but not as bad as it was. I've been I'm trying to get out as much as I can. I get off work, immediately come home and grab the wife and dog and grab my equipment and head out and go check some places out. And I've been hitting some pretty good places lately. The other day, I was up by Mud Lake. I was in there pretty deep and checking out some structures. There's a few structures that I had filmed before, and there was also some new stuff in there. Some of the structures were actually added on, and I just want to like stress to people. I've been trying to stress to people because they're pretty close-minded about the situation, about structures that these creatures, these Bigfoot, they make structures out there, and I've spent my entire life in the woods. I grew up in a homestead log cabin on a dirt floor, which I'm not complaining. That was awesome. I love those years, and I've seen many different types of structures. You know, as far as where an elk would bed, where a deer would bed. You always know bear den type situations, um, human made, uh, and from my experience, well, first of all, the places that I actually went out to investigate, a lot of those places there's no hunters, and there's a reason behind that. Sasquatch tend to really mess with people that hunt animals. I I don't know. I don't think they really want them to mess with the animals or something, or they know that the hunter is taking the animal in their eyes disrespectfully. I guess you would say, because I'm half Native American and I hunt. I haven't been hunting in 8 years, and it's supposed to uh, show appreciation for that animal. I always pour water in its mouth and whatnot. But going out into these areas and all the structures and the tree manipulations that I find, I know the difference between, whether it be wind blown, whether it be caused by snow. I'm very intelligent in that way. Back into those woods, if it came to a survival situation, it's no problem. I could do it easily. I know the vegetation. I know where to find the vegetation, and that's why I tend to find these creatures so often, is because I use and integrate that into my investigations and research on these creatures. And usually I can sit back and I can look at the terrain and look at the mountain terrain, and I'm usually pretty correct on where there's going to be structures, where there's going to be movement, where they're traveling, because they don't sit in one spot all year long. They don't pick a little side of a mountain and you'll find a bunch of structures in that location, and they don't just sit in that spot all year long. Maybe a couple of weeks a month in that general area, and that they travel. They have these areas that I've noticed, and then they'll eventually come back to their, like, I call it their original base area, and they keep doing that.
Oh, excuse
Bless you. They keep doing such a thing.
me.
Oh, bless you again. Uh, they keep
Sorry,
coming
folks.
down. They keep coming down, and they'll situate themselves in those areas. And it's basically the fact all these structures and these tree manipulations. Like, you'll see a lot of them on some of the pictures that he'll post up later. Um, they like to mimic humans. I had a report. I think it was in if it was in the Spanish mountains, way south of me here in Colorado. A lady was telling me she actually knew who I was. I was in Granby, and I was checking out an area there, and I found some footprints and some little tiny footprints. They were just little. I wouldn't say 5 inches long, real deep in the mud. And well, she knew who I was, and she's like, "You're Zeus, Southwestern Slope Bigfoot. You really got some good stuff, you know." And my head just got even bigger than it already is, you know. And she goes, "I got some stuff to tell you." And she told me they were camping in the Spanish mountains south of me, way south of me. I want to say it's a good 8 hours away. And her and her family, dad and I think grandpa were there, whatnot. And she was telling me, um, I believe it was the night before, they had all got some food together. They were gonna, like, barbecue. And well, grandpa had a one of those what do you call those flint sticks that they use? The magnesium flint sticks that start the fires.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was striking one of those and lit the campfire. And they just sat around, drank some beers, they ate some food, and then they all went to bed early the next morning. Her and I believe her boyfriend or husband at the time, they came out of the tent situated, I think she said, on the west side of the camp, and they came out of the tent to use the restroom, and she just happened to look over and seen a little Sasquatch, is what she explained it. She said it was kind of mangy, which I've seen Sasquatch that were like that. They look like they're losing, kind of, they're getting their male pattern baldness, I guess, all over their body. They're kind of mangy looking. And he was down there at the campfire, and he had two rocks, and he was smacking those rocks together because he was observing Grandpa the night before, sitting there doing something what he thought was probably rocks, and then he started a fire, and her and her boyfriend or husband at the time were sitting there watching the Sasquatch with his back facing them, and they could hear the rocks clacking. They could see the rocks, and he was just at their campfire. He was repeatedly trying to smack these rocks together to start a fire because he was mimicking what the humans were doing that night, the night before. And she did cut. She was only about 5 foot away from Dad's tent, and she threw a little rock and she said, "Dad." She kind of, real quietly said, "Dad." And he would that squatch didn't hear her, I guess. And Dad, he didn't say anything, but he unzipped the tent, made the zip sound, and that squatch kind of looked back, and he was out of there, dropped the rocks and took off. And that's a perfect example in a report of how Sasquatch will mimic you, like fake fire pits. I've seen that a lot out in the woods. Sometimes they have wood in it, unburnt, and they'll make little fire pits out there because they observe humans out there making a fire. And I believe they come out and they're in the forest and whatever, and they make a little fake fire pit, and they observe the humans putting the wood in it because it's flammable. And they might, we don't see it, but they might actually be out there taking rocks and trying to start it, or trying to figure out, how do they start the fire? You know what I mean? And but I observed, I've got a lot of fake fire pits. And the other day, when I think something was watching me, I got a picture of it. It's a still off the video. In the distance, I think something was watching me. I'm not going to call it right away that it is. It just suspiciously looks like something.
All right, Zeus, I'll put this picture up right
And in
here.
that, yeah, see that. And who would put a fire pit right next to a tree? And I had an individual tell me, "Oh, campers, they build little fire pits and then they'll throw wood in it. So it's called good camping practices or something." He said like that. And I kind of laughed. I'm like, I never really heard of that. I know people will go use old campfires, pits from other uh, campers that were out there.
But yeah, you brought
Like,
up a good point. You brought up a good point on that. Who in their right mind would actually build a fire pit right against a pine tree?
yeah, even if they were just being, kind and just putting it there for another guy. And I kind of laughed about it. I was like, first of all, that's not your typical fire pit. Every fire pit that I've seen a human build, including myself, are fairly good size and fairly good size stackable rocks to make sure there's no
Nothing
fire
spreads.
spreadage.
Yep.
Right.
Nothing spreads
And you're
out.
not going to build it right next to a tree as well. I mean,
No, I mean that thing's like an inch away from that tree. I mean, you're gonna have some problems if you light that wood in there on fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to make another point that Zeus has made here, as far as these creatures doing things out of the ordinary, and things that you know. I'm sure this next picture I'm gonna bring up, people would say, "Oh, uh, a man has done that." Well, let me bring this picture up, and you tell me, folks, whether a man could have actually done this or not.
Oh, yeah, that rock right there. I'm guessing 600 pounds, give or take. That was a very big rock, and I don't see any humans going out of their way to. It would take 4 or 5 guys to even get it off the rock itself because it's flat underneath. To pick it up and have another guy stack a couple of rocks under there, and then when it was placed on there, that bottom stone is shattered from the weight of that rock. And I just
Yeah,
that was last
those
week.
rocks that the big rock is stacked on. You're probably looking at 200 pounds or better on just that bottom rock, and at least 150 pounds or more for the top rock. And I don't see anybody that's going to get out and give themselves a hernia trying to position something like this.
Absolutely, yeah.
I got. Did you look at? Okay, so when you took that picture, did you go over to the since you're looking at it? Did you go over to the left side of it? And is that rock just sitting out in the open by itself, or is it like attached to a bank on that left hand side, or another rock, or?
No, there's just kind of a buried boulder underneath of it. You could see the floor is just a buried
Yeah.
boulder, 4 foot maybe by 4 foot, and then that rock is on top of that, and there's uh, a cedar tree that's 8 foot away to. Well, looking at that picture, it would be to the right, south, and that's the only tree. And then when you go north, about 30 steps, there's a little bunch of little aspen trees, a little grove of aspen trees. And then, like I told my buddy Hobby, he's been going out with me lately. He's really infatuated with the subject, being he had his experience up where I investigate. He actually had a good experience up there. And I told him, I said, these Sasquatch love draws. They love the draws, whether they have water in them or not. It's a good spot to stay hidden as you come down. There seems to be a lot more foliage and forest in those areas. And every time we've come up to a draw, we've seen some activity. And he said, he's like, you're dead right on this. And just at the bottom of the draw, that's where that rock was. And we didn't go all the way up the draw because it was getting pretty dark, and we were a mile and a half in. And you as you go up the draw in that area, there was a Sasquatch sighting, but I neglected to say that too. That area where that rock was at, up on the side of the mountain, just I don't know, 500 yards, there was a Sasquatch who was moseying across the side of the mountain there. And he would sit down on rock, and then he would just kind of. The guy said he would just kind of looked bored, and he would sit down on a rock, and he kind of got up, picked something up off the ground, and until he disappeared into the forest on the other side. But south of me is a huge ranch. That's huge. It's hundreds and thousands of acres, and nothing there in back of me as far as that's concerned. But you head east, and that's where the ranch is at, about a mile away, and then about a half a mile down. And so going up that draw just before, I didn't go all the way up in there, but when I was making video that day, you could start to see structures up there into that draw, and a lot of game will follow draws too, and make their way up draws and different things like that. And that same day, there was we heard some strange sounds. We even heard what sounded like an owl, but it was a really cheap owl. Like he didn't like whatever's trying to make an owl sound was doing an okay job, but it was pretty obvious it wasn't a full fledged.
That's kind of like Blake and I over on Blue Ridge. We right at dark one evening, we'd heard what we perceived to be a yelp, uh, and then followed by the yelp was an owl call. Uh, but as boisterous as this thing was, this call, I told Blake, I turned to Blake and told him, I said, if that was an owl, it had to have weighed at least 600 pounds. Because that's, so that's a joke between Blake and I, is our 600-pound owl.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, if that was an owl, it was I would rather have met a Sasquatch than that owl.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
That owl will probably snatch you up and fly away with you. And another thing I noticed,
we got prehistoric owls sitting around, I guess.
another thing I noticed too, that day when that I call it a cheap owl, which I know better than that. It wasn't no owl. It was something back there mimicking it. The crows, when you're getting into a location, and they're not just upset that you're there in that sense. If they have young or whatever, I mean they can, but I run into crows a lot into the woods where they don't really raise hell like they usually do when you come into areas with tree manipulations and structures. And in my 32 years experience, whenever I start hearing the crows really making a ruckus, there's a reason behind that. You're close to something, and then lo and behold, you start getting wood knocks, you start getting vocals, you start getting rock clacking, hand claps, and what sounds sometimes it sounds like a chest bump. I don't know if I've never seen one do that, but it's kind of what it sounds like. And then mouth pops, all these crazy sounds. It starts. You're just walking through the forest. You're seeing the evidence, and I became pretty good at following evidence and tracking and footprints and whatnot, and tracking these creatures into areas where they're traveling. And then next thing you know, I mean, I had my niece with me one day, and Javi on his first outing, we kind of I tracked some very small evidence all the way up 4 miles in, and lo and behold, we started getting all these teepee type structures. Some of them were out in the open, and they're real dirty. They're not good looking. You could tell they're tree like that. They're just real wide on the bottom. They're not real thick. They're just kind of dirty. And what boggles me is most of the time that's always filled with water, and I don't know why they would go in there. And
yeah, that's what I was just about to ask. Does that normally have water in it?
Yeah, it's usually always got water in it. There's a lot of moose in that area, and the teepees that we ran into when he first went with me, it's been 2 weeks ago now, I want to say. We had some really good evidence. It was a little bit scary and unnerving. I let him carry my 357 because I ran into a cat a day before that too, peeking over the rock at me with its ears back, and as I raised the camcorder up to get some photos and video of them because I like to video the wildlife too when I when it's available when they're there. But the next day, we seen some of the cat tracks. I think it was from the same one. But we went in and we seen all these teepees, and I told Javi, I said, look, we're kind of in a draw. We're almost in the draw slash comes down into a bowl area, and where are all these teepees positioned? And they're not something that a man would go out of his way. It makes no sense. And some of the teepees there's a fresh tree, a young tree, bushy all the way down, pine tree, Douglas or whatever, and all these, here and there, not real thick, but all these uh, dead small trees were lined up around it. And I told Javi, I said, I kind of feel like, and I've said this for years that's a blind. As soon as they get inside of one of those, it's kind of breaks their outline up. And I've noticed usually when I find those teepees, there's usually a big time game area. It's where elk, deer, that's a regular travel through for those animals. And then you start finding all these teepees, and I call it a little Sasquatch village. And I've ran into stuff like that before, 4 miles way, way back there. And then and one of the teepees was built on the side of a kind of a cliffy rock, and kind of like why would they make that there? And then another one was a huge stump that's been broken off. The tree was snapped off and the tree was gone, but it was an old stump, 6 foot high, real big around, and there. Oh yeah, that's not the one, but that's what I'm talking about. In that spot where I found this at, that was about 2.5 mile walk in, off trail, away from my vehicle, and the trail is actually 2.5 miles directly north, going down the hill. And this spot I'd actually walked up in there, and I seen little signs here and there, and it led me to this little structure. It's got a big tree in the middle of it, and I've seen that before. And
that right there just what makes it weird to me, like with these structures is, let's just say, put the human factor in there. Why, first of all, but why would they put a tree like that in the middle of a structure if it was human?
Yeah, well, the tree is already there. It's usually an old stump, very big, and then they go put all those. I call it a dirty structure, and most of the sticks that are on the outside, they're all kind of finely woven in. I mean, something took a lot of time.
Yeah.
To make that. For what reason? 2.5 miles out, kind of on a cliffy edge there, and why would they do that? For what reason? And there's no hunting up there. Most of all the places I go, there's no hunting, unless I say otherwise on a video or whatever. And this is the one from the other day before yesterday. These that makes no sense how that could naturally happen. It's the only spot in that whole area that I was at that I could see that looked like that, with root balls stuck way up in the air, 6 foot in the air. And the two trees in the background there are actually holding it. But what's weird is this little spot, all the logs are elevated off the ground. Not a single one is touching the ground. And then you go just outside of that, and you see all the deadfall, natural stuff laying on the ground, another log laying on another log and whatnot. But then you come up to this, and it's all elevated with these more than 2 root balls stuck up in the air. And that root ball right there is freaking massive. That one tree right in the middle is huge. And then I came across that, and I thought, well, shit, man, this don't look like a unnatural thing that happened, unless the wind just kind of picks stuff up and positions it to where it's all lifted off the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very odd.
Yeah, and every one of those trees, there's the big one, the smaller one off to the right, and there's like a grayish colored log. That's also got a little root ball stuck up in the air. The whole thing does, and they're all positioned where they're sticking out in an even spacing between each of those logs and where those root balls are. It's kind of strange. I find it almost like a symbolism. They could be, like I said before, some kind of symbolism, uh, trying to tell others, either there's danger, there's something there, something else there that could cause them danger. There's the game in the area. It could be pointing in three different directions to different areas for, uh, vegetation and different types of berries that they could eat on because there's not a lot of berries up here. And, it could be anything like that. I think it just symbolizes to each other. And it's funny because I'll find the same characteristics in these tree structures and this tree manipulation like this. I could go miles and miles and miles and never see it again. And then all of a sudden, almost the same thing again. The same type of manipulation on the trees and logs with the root balls sticking out and whatnot. And it's like, I try
Now,
to.
Zeus, in this area here, did you find any heavily used game trails?
Yeah, the video that I made that day of this area and walking in, there was a huge amount of game moving through there. And it's kind of in a little valley. And just to the left, going north of the logs there, to your left, if you're looking at it from my view, there's a little creek down there. So they have plenty of water. It's kind of marshy creek area. And I've seen the tracks. There's so much elk and deer and moose moving through there. It's not even funny. And I,
I have another one here. Speaking of symbolism, uh,
oh yeah, there's my buddy Javi. Uh, Before we came up onto this spot right here, it's actually a ledge. I call it like a ledge. The mountain, we started way back down about 3/4 of a mile, and it kind of went flat a little bit, and then it goes straight up, and it comes up to a ledge, and then the mountain starts back up again behind that cross. So we got up on top of that ledge, and just to the south of us, there's more logs that were stacked up on a single boulder, and there was three areas in this general area where it's just not naturally done, where all these logs are bring in and just stacked one on top of each other on top of the rock, right? So as we were coming in and we hit the top of the ledge and got up onto that flat ground, we heard this gutturally kind of a growl, or I can't hardly explain it. It was just a type of growl. It wasn't a cat. It wasn't a bear. If it was, we would have obviously seen it. We would have seen it plain as day. And we just paused, and I told Javi, I said, well, we need to walk further and get into where all those logs are laying on that tree. And as we were getting there, I just happened to look to the right of me, and there's this massive X sitting there. And I thought, holy shit. I said, look at this massive X hanging over us. And it's got the same characteristics as every other X that I've ever found. They're really nice symmetrical X. The top part of the tree of that X is on one side of the tree, on say the right, and the bottom part is on the back side of the tree. It's the same characteristics every time. It's just more manipulation. It's symbolism for the others out there. And I have a feeling that symbolizes because there's two different types of Sasquatch, okay? I began to understand this throughout the years I've been doing this. Some are very mean, some do not like us, let alone probably others. And wherever I go and I find the ones that are kind of on the aggressive side, that are kind of mean, you don't find X's. You don't find really any structures. You'll find some breaks, subtle stuff like that. And this is just what I've just observed. But the moment you get into another area, you suddenly what I call the good Sasquatch that aren't real malicious. And if you see their eye shine in this area, it's generally not red. It's usually white, orange, or yellow. The mean ones tend to have really red eye shine. And I've seen the mean ones in their area, though, eye shine from their area where there's really no structures. I really don't know why. And their eye shine is red. In this mountain here, I observed yellow eye shine in this whole mountain area, another spot that I investigated on the other side, on the south side. And then I think everything is just a theory that that X symbolizes the good Sasquatch. It probably tells the bad ones, this is our area, stay the hell out. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people I've heard observe those X's and they get the impression it's for them to stay out. But
You
it's
know, I've not, yeah, and I've actually also spoken with people that have done this for years, and a lot of them seem to think that that maybe these X's are marking a particular either a particular tribal ground for these things or a particular maybe hunting grounds for these things.
yeah, I know Sasquatch are they're real territorial. They have their areas, and I think that X it doesn't mean for you to stay out. That's that's telling something else to stay out. Or like one of the other crazy things that I've seen out there that this is their area and that X symbolizes that, and you find the same X throughout the world in different spots in different areas, and the same characteristics that I was telling you about, and yeah, and stuff like this. You know, I think they were going to attempt to build a little structure, kind of like a roof A-frame type of structure, which they do. And maybe they just kind of learned that from, oh yeah, there's another little Sasquatch. These guys up here are little Sasquatches, and they've got orange eye shine. They're up on Sasquatch Mountain, I call it. It goes by a different name. I can't think off my head the mountain, but I call it Sasquatch Mountain. And yeah, see the huge log in the middle of that, the huge stump, and then they pile a few others right up against that. And I believe there's some symbolism and some like sacred stuff about that to them, because that stump is a big stump. It's it would have been a bigger tree in the area, which is it's pretty cool. I've seen that quite a bit actually.
And I've actually had Native Americans tell me that they seem to think that this could actually be symbolism from when the Indians roamed the plains or the mountains, whatever, and actually built teepees. That these creatures down through the years are mimicking what they actually saw the Native Americans do.
Yeah, uh, I've actually heard that, and it's very possible. One of the two mimicked each other. Either the Native Americans mimicked the Sasquatch and realized that that's a very sturdy structure against wind and whatnot, or
Right.
the Sasquatch observed that from them. Um, yeah, this is a crazy. That thing has been completely twisted and broke, and that's I want to say 8 foot off the ground, maybe 10, give or take. But that's some incredible strength to. That's just not like a lightning strike. I was a foreman for a fire crew for many years down in New Mexico and part of Colorado, and we've seen lightning strikes. How lightning would take out trees. It looks nothing like that. And I've shown that picture to my old forestry boss. He kind of laughed and he's like, "Well, something with some how do you put it? Basically, he said something with immense power twisted that up and kind of made a joke about it because he knows about these things too. He's seen them out there, and he's like, I asked him too. I said, "Does that look like a lightning strike to you?" He said, "No, hell no. That's not wind or anything."
And what really gets me is people actually think that these creatures are little teddy bears or whatever. And in my opinion, shows the sheer strength that these type creatures possess. And if they can do something like this, you know, all I can tell people is, when you're in the woods, be very careful, be very observant of your surroundings. You know, if
Absolutely.
if these creatures, if if you see these creatures or signs of these creatures, you know, my opinion is to back out and leave them to themselves, because these creatures are a they're a very huge, very stout individual, and they can, if provoked, they can hurt you very, very severely.
Yeah, they could rip you apart easy. And I try to tell people that uh, they get the impression. I mean, granted, the good Sasquatch are good in a sense that they're not really have a desire to destroy you, not like the other Sasquatch. I think they're similar, but they're very very mean, and they will make you disappear. And just here where I live, there's been people that disappeared. A couple of them made the 411 show by the fellow that makes the
Yeah,
411.
David Pilatus, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I try to tell people too, I don't gift food. I don't do it. That's a dangerous idea. It's extremely risky, and I try to spread that message to people that think that gifting food is a good thing. It's not. It's not
No, now,
at all.
my opinion on that is if you're actually doing research and you're out in an area, far from your home, it might be okay to do something like that. But, if you've got these creatures living around your property and you start gifting food to them, all you're doing is actually drawing them in closer to your home. And then, if you suddenly stop the gifting, that's when the trouble begins.
Yep, they get very angry about it, and I know this from experience. I've done it. I've done it in the past. It's been years and years since I gave up on gifting food. You're looking for trouble. That's 100%. You can't tell me otherwise. You're looking for trouble when you gift them food. It's not a good idea. If you gift them, you can gift them
Blake, we
toys.
lost you there, bud.
I'm having Wi-Fi problems.
Oh, are you?
Did you say wife problems? That makes two of us. Just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm just giving you some hell. I ain't seen you guys in a while. But as far as
Well,
gifting
boy, that's something I don't have to worry about. Thank you.
so what I was saying, I highly recommend not gifting food at all. You're looking for trouble. That is just that. I'm very firm on that.
Blake, what's your opinion on that, bud?
What, gifting food?
Yeah.
Definitely not on your own property.
That's what I was
Especially,
explaining.
I mean, I really wouldn't, but I mean, just because you don't want them to get you, especially feeding this like any, I mean, I look at it as any type of living, breathing thing. Far as when you feed it, they're going to expect to be fed.
exactly, exactly. But I do tell people it's okay. I've gifted toys and stuffed animals and material things that aren't edible. And when you do that, it's more of a something that they'll take because they like it, but it's not like food where they're going to take an apple or a banana or a candy bar, peanuts and peanut butter, and they're going to eat it and they're going to think, "Holy hell, this is really good," and they're going to kind of want to demand more, and then
Right.
eventually they're going to get so aggressive with you, they're going to raise hell with you. They're slamming rocks inside of your house, or if you go out to your gifting area, you're going to get a lot of aggressive response because basically they're telling you, "Put that food down now." basically. They're telling you what's up. It's kind of like with the bear. You feed a bear for the first time, what's he start doing? He starts encroaching on you, and he starts. The next thing you know, he's busted into your house, and he's probably going to maul one of you, or if given the chance. But
we interviewed a lady here. I don't know, back last year, and she had told us that she actually had gifted eggs to these animals, and that in return that she had come home and found fresh fish on her back porch.
yeah,
These animals, so these animals do. If you and this goes into their habits, their behavior. If you gift these animals uh, a certain item, they will in return, you know, uh, gift you back. But as Blake says, and as Zeus says, it's not a very good idea to give food, especially around where you live.
Well, I mean, it's one of the things. I mean, you might it might have to do with the actual one that you're gifting. I mean, might be one of those circumstances where just like when you feed certain dogs. I mean, I hate to use that reference, but certain animals are fine, some are not. I mean,
yeah,
some stay around your home if they're strays, some do not. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say, uh, in the past, you bringing that up, when I used to gift them years ago, I would get things back like they're not even, some of them aren't even edible. Well, I'm assuming a lot of the mushrooms weren't even edible, but to a human anyway. That sometimes they would leave a couple of mushrooms in the spot where I left them apples, or I would leave them 3 apples. I get 3 pine cones back, or something like that. It's happened a few times, but for the most part, uh, there's that 20 or 30% chance that they might leave you something back, and then the other percentage,
take it and run.
they just take it and they don't leave you anything, but they want you to keep leaving stuff. And if you don't, they can get aggressive. I tell people not a good idea to be gifting like that because they will follow you home.
Especially with
I know
food,
from experience.
especially. I mean, just because you don't know. I mean, it could be fine. It could not be fine.
Yeah, yeah. It depends. Maybe you ran into one that's really having a good day, and he's like, "Hell yeah, thanks for the apples. Here's a fish," And then the next time, he's pissed off. He's just got in a fight with his freaking girlfriend or whatever, and he's like, "Give me that goddamn apple." Screw you. You ain't getting shit. Actually, give me some more right now. I want to see a candy bar next time. If you don't, I'm gonna drop a tree and scare the shit out of you or something.
I had to burn 10,000 calories to get over here and get my gifts.
Yeah, as he walks up and he's severely overweight Sasquatch.
Well, that's just it, boys. We really we don't know what these excuse me, we don't know what these creatures are actually thinking, or if they're even capable
Well,
of
and
rational
it's
thought.
hard to actually study the behaviors of something we don't even truly understand. I mean, you can conduct all these experiments, but you have a hypothesis at that point. You don't have no true. I mean, like 100%. This is how it's going to go every single time.
Exactly. Yeah, not like an elk, how you can actually study it and you can understand.
Predict its behavior. You can't
Yeah,
predict the behavior.
because for one, a Sasquatch is far off from any animal that you ever met, or let alone a human that you've ever met. Yeah, they get pissed off. They have emotions. We all know that they have emotions, but what are they really thinking? What is their
Thought
their
process.
intentions and their
Yeah.
thought process when they're standing there looking at you? Is he just going to flip out, come after you? Is he going to throw a rock and smash you in the face with it? You just don't know. It's one of those things, and same like
You talking about the rock throwing. Blake and I have actually had rocks thrown at us, to where I know that these creatures, at any given time, they could have actually taken us out with these rocks if they had wanted to. Um, but
Well, that's why I say most of the time. I think most of their actions are bluffs or more of intimidation. Because me and Ricky's been so close that in multiple times I'm not saying we're lucky or anything like that, but I truly feel like if we were going to be attacked, we've done been attacked.
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll throw
That
bluff.
doesn't mean that we may not become part of the missing 401 at some point in day or time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
Well, I hope not.
I hope not.
I had a guy at work the other day too. We were talking about this subject, and he he looked at me and he said, "Man," he said, "you've got to be a stark raving lunatic." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "You actually go out in the woods at night to investigate something that's 8 to 9 foot tall, weighs 600 to 1,000 pounds, that could yank your head off at any given moment, and you still choose to do this." And he says, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
So my buddy Javi just came in. He's been joining me. He's experienced some pretty crazy stuff. You want to say hi to Rick and Blake on here?
Nope. Hi.
That's his
okay,
hand, by the way.
Hey, Harvey, how's it going, buddy?
He said, "How's it going, man? Doing good?
Yeah, it's going well, man.
Awesome."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's got a real good eye for this stuff out there too. He's picked some things out that I almost walked past.
always have a good. Yep, I was about to say it's always good to have two sets of eyes.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you something, Zeus, and this goes back to interactions with these creatures. Blake and I, well, no, this was back in what, 2011. We actually encountered a family unit of these things that Blake actually saw and was fortunate enough to see. And one night we went down to the area where we were interacting with these things, and uh, I know you've heard of oh God, the Sierra Sounds.
Mhm.
Okay, we actually that night we actually encountered the same type of vocals that is on the Sierra Sound.
Wow.
I mean, and when we started down this trail toward the lake, and Blake, correct me, if I'm wrong on any of this, but it actually Blake started hearing it, started hearing the vocals, but then as we got closer, all of us in the group could actually hear it, but it sounded as if it was coming from both sides of us, in front of us, behind us, and actually in the trees around us. And that was one of the most, I guess, frightening deals that I've had happen to me on doing these type investigations.
Yeah. Yep.
Ricky, I think the scariest I've seen you is when we were in the boat and we got that response
Oh
right on
yeah,
top of
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
right
yeah,
up
yeah,
on
yeah.
the embankment
Yeah,
from us.
I forgot about that, and I was ready to
That,
jump out of the boat. We'd actually pulled around in this cove where we'd been getting a lot of the activity from, and we were taking about 20 foot off the bank. And I told Blake to do a howl. Well, Blake
Talk about a
did.
bad jump scare type situation. Like we're just give you bank. It plateaus at the top. We're sitting down here in the water, right below the ledge right here.
Hmm.
And I can't remember, Freaky, if you did the howl or I did the
Oh, you
howl,
did the howl, but this thing, this
whichever.
thing, this
Was
thing,
standing
son.
right on top
Yeah, he was right
of
in the
this
edge of the tree
ledge.
line on top of this
He could
bluff.
have. I mean, it was
Yeah, he
30
could have
foot,
bailed right off
40
in there
foot
with
from
us.
us.
Yeah.
Wow.
But this thing screamed out, dude, and I mean it was so resonant that you could actually feel it in your chest
Yeah.
when this thing screamed. And I was in front of the boat when this thing screamed out. I was trying to climb up on the damn motor to get out of the boat.
Swimming across.
I don't know where he was going, but he was going somewhere.
I
It
was
scares
getting
the hell out of you.
out of there.
It's one thing to hear it on video recording, but when you're out there in the woods, I've heard
Well,
plenty of all that.
let me tell you, there a difference between hearing at a distance and we've had two circumstances like that where we got a vocalization right up on us. Like I mean,
right up
talk
on top
about
of us, yeah.
super close.
I think it's been about 2 weeks. Hey, Javi, remember when that Sasquatch screamed at us really close, like it was so loud?
Yeah,
That was about 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
yeah, something like that. But it was really, really scary.
Yeah. Remember I told you we went up 4 miles, about 4 miles or so, give or take. And while we were back there, it got dark on us, pitch black, and we had to walk about 3 miles out in the dark. And I told Javi at this time, these guys up here on this side of the mountain in this area, they don't do much in the way of any vocals, any wood knocks, any of your typical stuff that they do going in. And so we went into our location. I said, but when we're coming out, they will follow you. And we were being followed and kind of almost like we were surrounded. And we got, I don't know, quarter mile from the car, something like that. And we're standing there in pitch black. I had my camera, I had my camcorder, and we noticed this tracks coming off the snow because on the south side of the north side of the mountain, our south side there's a bunch of snow. It's still 1.5 feet deep. And there's these tracks coming out of there, and it looked like it hopped at a certain point and hit the dry area. And I told Javi, I said, that wasn't in there. That wasn't there when we came in. And we popped their flashlights on it, looking at it. And as soon as we were looking around with our flashlight, wow, this scream right down the mountain. I swear it was 100 feet away, maybe not even that. It was so freaking loud. There's no houses down there. There's nothing down there. It's just woods. And then it goes down and into this valley, and it comes up into some more woods and stuff. And this thing was so freaking loud. It was insane. And Javi looked at me, his jaw was hanging open. I looked at him. I was like, no effing way. I was like, and I didn't have my camcorder going, it just kills me. It's happened to me a couple of times now since a couple of weeks ago where there was a vocal. I went up to Jam Lake and Javi was meeting me up there. He came about halfway up. I turned around. I was coming back down in the ravine. In this little ravine, there's a creek that runs down it. I was coming down and there was nobody out there. And it was almost dark. Again, it was this loud whoop, whoop, whoop. And I was like, holy shit. And I had signal over there where I was at, and I texted Javi. I said, is that you screaming? He's like, I didn't make a sound. I'm just waiting for you. But he was still, I don't know, mile away or something probably. And I said, God damn it. I didn't have my camcorder going again. I could have caught such fabulous Sasquatch vocals.
It's just like my experience with the paranormal. It works the same way. When you have things, you can't get no recordings for its vocals. But when you don't have a recorder, it happens all the time.
And hey, speaking of that,
I mean, like when we first started having all these experience down at the lake that Ricky was just talking about, we didn't think about first we didn't know what was going on, but we didn't think about actually trying to get no recordings for a little while after going down there. It's like every time we'd go down there, we'd get all kinds of vocalizations, everything, and then take a recorder with us and nothing.
right,
Stay out there, be out there for hours.
what
And nothing. And then not taking a recorder or not having something with you, vocalization.
What started all this with Blake and I was we were in a cemetery at 2:00 in the morning, dude, when this first started happening to us. Now, a rural cemetery that's like 3-4 miles off the main road over to where that cemetery is at.
It's almost 4 miles.
And dude, we were out in the middle of this cemetery doing paranormal research which we'd already caught some paranormal stuff going on. So we were already keyed up over this. And then all of a sudden we were under this tree and rocks the size of a basketball from 60 yards at the wood line at 60 yards was coming down through this tree and landing all around us.
Mm-hmm.
I wheel around. Blake, his dad, the whole bunch was gone. I hollered out, boys, where are you? They were plumb down at the lower end of the cemetery. And his dad hollered back at me. He said, hell, man, they said that thing's throwing rocks big as basketball to us. Uh, we left out. So I run down there where they were at. We go back up to there's a pavilion at the upper end of the cemetery. We get up under the pavilion. We had in the morning got under the pavilion. So this thing pushed a tree over that was so big that it actually, you could feel the concrete vibrating under your feet when this thing hit the ground. And screamed out, dude, every hair on my head stood straight up. And this was our first encounter down there with this thing.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's
and we had to be crazy because number one, we were down there doing paranormal research, and number two, we just kept going back.
Yeah, it's. I believe when they do stuff like that, they don't want you in their area. That's another one of those bluff things. Like, I'm badass, I can hurt you, I'll scare the hell out of you with my strength, and it works. Works for me every time. I ain't gonna go chasing that thing down. Hell no. I'll document
it. you know how to take the hint, right?
Exactly, like I did the other day before yesterday, where those root balls are sticking up in the air. When I was in that area, I call it.
I have got to show the folks one that you sent me.
I called it like the hidden forest area. I went about a half a mile or so in there, and then I was carrying a 10 millimeter because you got to have protection out there. I don't care who you are, and it's not for Sasquatch, it's for them bears, not so much lions and those damn moose. But anyways, so I'm getting in there, and this overwhelming fear came over me, and it was not long after I had heard the really loud wood knocking, and I heard some other stuff going on. I don't even know what that was. Fairly loud, and my mic cut out on me, and it was on. There was a couple of times, I admit, on a couple of videos, there was a spot where I forgot to turn it on. But the cloaked Sasquatch or whatever he's doing, I don't know. He's kind of far away behind that rock. I don't know if I sent a closer picture to you or not of the face. Yeah, there's some good footprints right by a lake I found.
Right. I was trying to run through these pictures. I may not have downloaded this one particular picture. But Blake, it was kind of like the one that we found, although it was bigger. It's actually a tree where it had been broken off and turned up and driven into the ground with the root ball sticking right straight up in the air.
Oh yeah, very rare. It's a very rare thing that they do. Bobby!
I can't believe I did not download that for the show. Oh. Okay, I didn't, guys. Oh well. Zeus on our next show, I will have.
That's okay. I'm sure you guys will have me on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, most definitely.
What was I saying? Oh, in that area, as I was walking back, the foliage and the vegetation and the trees and everything got really thick. I really couldn't see that far. But as I'm walking in, I felt pretty good walking in. I started getting a little bit nervous, a little more nervous. And then all of a sudden, I'm starting to get hit with quite a bit of fear. I'm shaking and everything. And I thought to myself, I don't think I'm going to go any further. I'm going to have, when when he can come with me, I'll have him walk a little further back in there because that's a good spot. There's been reports of Sasquatch in that area. There's Sasquatch all over the place out here, but they're like herds of deer running around here. It seems like. But anyway, is that sad that I find more Sasquatch than I do deer or elk around here, even though there's a lot? And then that's no kidding too. I hear them. I hear the wood
Well,
knots. I see them.
man, it's just like in the area out here where we live in the mountains, the area now. Uh, Basically, out here where you find a plentiful game source,
Hmm.
you're going to find Sasquatch.
Yeah, yeah. And up in where I'm at in this area, there's no shortage of game at all. Um, and like I said, they like the little ravines. They stay next to the water. You find a little creek running up through the mountains. Chances of finding a Sasquatch or some evidence of Sasquatch are very high. And lakes, any kind of water, they stay near that kind of stuff. There's another area, Beaver Reservoir. There's still a ton of snow up there. I went to check that out the other day, and a huge amount of Sasquatch activity up there. I get people telling me about stuff up there all the time. I personally haven't been there yet. It's private property, uh, but I on the north side of it is not private property as you drive into it, and then you cut into private property. I actually want to contact the ranch there and see if they would let me come and investigate and do some research on some Sasquatch. And I know they would open that door right up. And but I'm going to go investigate that area because I've seen some really fabulous stuff from a distance that just made tickled me big time. I My wife said before I even said anything because she's seen Sasquatch right along with me. She's she's got a prosthetic leg and she stays by the car. And whenever I take off to go investigate an area, it never fails. She sees a Sasquatch on all fours trailing me, and she'll call me on the radio. She says, "You're being followed," and I said, "Damn it, I knew it. I could feel it." And like the one time at Long Peak, you guys remember that photo, that comparison photo of when I got the Sasquatch, and then I went back and I got almost the same exact spot, and I did a little comparison photo. When I crossed into
Right.
there and came back and crossed the creek and went up this ridge, right after that, there was a small tree, she said, that was just going like whipping. And then she seen the head and shoulders of it kind of just peeked over the ridge, just kind of trailing me. And she called me again on the radio. She said, "You're being followed again." And I said, "Damn it, I could feel it. I knew it. I heard him. I could hear him coming through the brush. I can hear him trying to be real stealthy about it." And but she sees a lot, and that's, I think, a pretty good tactic. Have somebody stay by the vehicle, the rest of you go up, and you'll probably see something. I'm not lying about that because it happens to my wife all the time.
Well, folks, there's one thing about it. These creatures are probably one of the best creatures. Well, undoubtedly, these creatures are the best at being able to camouflage themselves, being able to stay completely out of human sight if they don't want to be seen. If you actually see one of these creatures, it meant for you to see him.
Hmm.
That's my belief.
Yeah, and I've throughout the 32 years I've been doing this, I have seen a lot of them. And do you know that the Sasquatch will take twigs, pine cones, maybe moss, and stick it on their fur?
Oh yeah,
I've seen a couple, more than a couple in my lifetime, of what I thought was just an old stump until it took off running in the distance, and it had stuff attached to it. And blew my mind. I was like, no shit. When I first seen that, it just taught me another valuable lesson in investigating these guys that they look like stumps out there.
well, Zeus, buddy, we've reached the a little over the 11 o'clock hour. Uh, Man, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show,
Yeah, thank you
and
as always.
we'll
Yeah,
have you
man,
back on very shortly.
it's
Uh,
awesome to talk to you guys and hear from you guys again. And I've got more stuff to talk about, and I'm gonna come up with even more stuff to talk about. I think it's gonna be a good year. I might get some more photos and video of Sasquatch. I think possibly I've got one already for this year on video and pictures of it. It's pretty suspicious.
All right.
Actually,
Buddy?
if you don't mind, can I kind of flash a little picture of it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of put together a little grid. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. See the black thing where the oil,
Right.
that? There's a closer view. I'm thinking that might be something. I don't know. It was the blackest thing out in the forest, and I didn't see it until I played back the video and noticed that. Kind of looks like a head and shoulders and stuff like that.
Sure
It's hard
does.
to see through like looking how you got it. I can tell that there's something there, but I can't see it.
And that was just 3 days ago, I want to say, 3 or 4 days ago. And that's in that general direction is where I heard this massive wood knock. So, and there was some suspicious footprints that I kind of think that it didn't look human to me. They were 13 inches long. So I think I might have had my first one of the year on video.
Right.
It's going to be a good year.
Well, man, we wish you the best of luck with your research out there. You gather up anything else that you think we might be interested in showing on the show, just holler back at us. Anytime you want to come on the show, share any evidence with our viewers, buddy, feel free. Just let me know. And
you're welcome anytime.
That's
All right,
it, buddy. All right,
All
Blake, you want to close her out, bud?
As always, guys.
Till next
Thank you
time.
so much.
All right, there. Good to meet you, man.
Follow Western Slope Bigfoot. And as always, guys, if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. And that's all.
All right, everybody. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we end the broadcast.